I used to love Xbox, man. What happened to the game I used to love? What it has become is just embarrassing. Every step of the way, they're finding new lows to hit. Today, Xbox has announced a Game Pass change, and it's a doozy. Try a 50% price increase to the Game Pass Ultimate tier. Yeah, and it is revolting. It's going about as well as me in a dunk competition. They have increased the price to $30 a month for the Ultimate tier, and the two previous tiers for Essential and Premium are just not worth it. The Ultimate tier is the only one that lets you get the games day one, and for a large number of people, that was one of the main draws of the service here. And even though the Xbox catalog has been like a fucking Magikarp over the last few years, just extremely weak, the value you got out of Game Pass at the previous price point made up for it. Like, it was worth it, and it's something that I glazed quite a bit. But now, at this price point, the fuck is the point in keeping it anymore? It's just not worth it, and a lot of people are now canceling their subscription to Game Pass in response to these price increases. It's just L after L for Xbox. Like, even just recently, they farted out a new price increase for the consoles in a time period where Xboxes are like fucking fossils. Like, you can't give those bitches away sometimes. It's a console that doesn't have a whole lot of reasons to buy it unless your friends are already on it, but chances are your friends have already moved past it. Because being an Xbox fan in 2025 is like being a fidget spinner enthusiast. It's just not cool. It's lame. Like, it is so far past its prime now. And it brings me no joy saying that, by the way. As I've always proudly stated, Xbox and Xbox 360 have been my favorite gaming experiences. Those two consoles, I think, are the most important pieces of, like, gaming hardware ever made. But once the Xbox One came out, that's when it all went tits up, and it is not recovered. You hate to see what Xbox has become. And anytime I talk about Xbox or like criticize a lot of the decisions they made over the years, somehow there is still like this last holdout of warriors willing to fight Xbox's PR battles for them, even though the general, Phil Spencer himself, constantly throws himself pity parties on every podcast that will have him about how they've lost the console wars. Like, he himself recognizes how far behind Xbox has fallen and how brutal it's been for them. And it just somehow keeps getting worse, even though they have this, like, come to Jesus moment of, man, we really put our own dick in our ass here. They don't do anything to course correct. Like, they did a good decision a little while back that I praised a lot, where they dropped exclusivity. I think that is the brightest path forward for the industry, where every title hits every platform, so consumers have their pick of playing it on their preferred platform. And Xbox was kind of pushing that, and I appreciated it. But for every one step forward they've taken 20 steps back, and today it has been a catastrophic disaster for them, because now they're fucking their golden goose. They even posted a delusional video celebrating these Game Pass changes as if it's something that the community was asking for. It's so out of touch and tone deaf. Just take a peek at this.
Hey everyone, Xbox Game Pass is getting an upgrade. We've listened to your feedback, and now you have even more freedom to choose how you play the games you want. We've expanded all Xbox Game Pass plans to give you more games and more ways to play and more rewards than ever. Previously, Core was primarily for console, but Essential now lets you play games on Xbox console, PC, and cloud. That means you have the freedom to stream and play on any supported device. And with cloud gaming, that includes a lot of devices.
So she goes through each tier with the upgrades that have been introduced, the improvements that they've augmented all of this with, and I'm just not fucking seeing it. Like, it really just seems like you get the same deal, but with more money needed to be forked over to achieve it. Like, the big thing that stands out to me is that they're putting more of a focus on, PC gaming. So instead of it being all about console, now you get more freedom to play on PC and like the cloud stuff. But for people that are like Xbox heads, they don't give a fuck about that. Like, they're not getting a much better deal. They're just having to pay more money for the deal. Like, it just doesn't seem worth it. And judging from the response from the community, almost nobody is defending it. I don't think there's anyone out there that actually thinks this is them listening to community feedback. Because you need to pay $30 a month in order to, like, play Call of Duty Black Ops 7 on launch. Why would you do that? Why would you be paying $30 a month to then get access to a game day one? It's so fucking expensive. At that point, you might as well just buy the game that you're interested in, as opposed to having this like ongoing expensive subscription to Game Pass Ultimate for it. It's just not worth it. The value is not there. It does seem like it is now just a price increase without offering any real reason or justification to fork over those doubloons for it. What the fuck is the point? Like, I don't know where the spin is coming that they're trying to put on it. Like, this is what you guys been asking for. Everyone's been begging to give us more money. All of you are asking to pay more for Game Pass. And we said, fine, guess our hands are tied. We're reluctant to do this, but we're going to increase the price by 50% per your feedback. It's what you guys were demanding, so we're just serving you the meal you ordered from the menu. Like, who's asking for that? Like, I don't know where it's coming from. And again, the things that they're talking about in the tier, like the tiers that they're introducing, it feels like it's mainly just PC cloud related stuff that I don't think the console players were really begging for in a big way, especially if it leads to a price increase.
The best thing about Ultimate is that you can play new games on day one. That includes games like Call of Duty Black Ops 7, The Outer Worlds 2, and High on Life 2. But now, the best is getting even better. Ultimate subscribers will get access to over 75 day one games a year. We're also adding 2 new partner subscriptions. With Ultimate, you'll now have access to Ubisoft Plus Classics in addition to EA Play.
Wait, maybe I was a little hasty. Hold the fucking phone here. You get access to Ubisoft Classics? Oh my god, that's what I've always wanted. Access to Ubisoft Classics. Ubisoft! Yes! Oh, I can't wait to be paying $30 a month. Whee! And of course, EA Play. Who can understate the value of EA Play there? This is so silly. And I was really curious if they were going to mention the price increases in this video here, because it's so pivotal. Like, this is a really big deal. It's not like some trivial increase of 50 cents. It's 50%. They have raised it from $20 to $30, and they don't make a peep. They don't mention it in this video at all. They tried to save that cold water outside of the hype of this announcement, which I think is a little scummy. I don't really like that. You should talk about the price changes too. You talked about everything else, like the name changes, which feel totally unnecessary, but that's just like corporate America where names change all the time for the most minuscule of reasons. But come on, you're not going to mention the price here? There's just nothing, there's nothing in this that screams value, that screams that this is worth it now. Previously, at the old price points of Game Pass, I thought it was a good deal. I really did think that they had a good service that they were offering at that price point. At this, I don't see who the fuck would ever be able to rationalize spending that kind of money for what you get out of it. It doesn't make sense to me. And what also doesn't make sense to me is how Microsoft thought that this was a good idea. I recognize that they're not, doing amazing, but I mean, come on, just look at 2025 for Microsoft. It has been rough. And they've already increased prices on console and everything, and now this. They had to know this was going to be a big fucking miss here. I just don't get it. It's crazy to me. Anyway, though, I just wanted to yap about this a bit. I really, and I don't mean this exaggeratory, I really don't know how much longer Xbox is even going to be around before they just pull the plug on it. It just seems like it's in such a disastrous state. They have so many things under their umbrella, but yet have so little to show for it. And their one, really good saving grace here with Game Pass is just getting ruined. It is going straight in the dumpster. It's already there. This is a dagger in Game Pass for a large number of people. It's not blown out of proportion with the amount of people canceling their subscription. It really does seem to be that bad. Anyway, though, I won't yap about it any longer. That's really about it. See ya. That's what it would look like if I was reading this news for the first time about the Microsoft price increases. But I read it earlier, and I already got all my frustration out of the way privately, screaming into a pillow. This isn't some make-believe fish paste, a little video game industry boogeyman here with some false reports. This is confirmed that Microsoft will be increasing all of their prices across the board on hardware as well as accessories. And most notably, they are increasing the price on their Xbox first-party games to $80. Following in line with what Nintendo's doing with some of their games. Now, you may notice, if you've got some keen peepers on you, I'm not in my normal domain. I'm in a hotel room. I'm in hiding because I knew I'd need to escape because I'm about to criticize Nintendo again while talking about Microsoft, and Nintendo fans don't like that. So we gotta play it safe here. Nintendo, I think, has set the trend here. They've broken the seal that $80 games will be accepted by people. And by people, I mean gamers, which is a different kind of person because they will accept any kind of shit you feed them at any price point, it seems. And now, since that case has been made, with the Switch 2 making record-breaking pre-orders apparently, Microsoft feels confident that they can do the same and they'll follow suit, and I imagine other big boys in the gaming industry will also do the same because being able to put the squeeze on gamers' piggy bank a little bit stronger is good for the bottom line. And since a lot of people are defending the $80 price tag, gaming companies are going to go in that direction, and thus it'll most likely be the new norm. But I am surprised it's happening this quick. I thought there'd still be more of a buffer before other big gaming industry giants jumped on board the $80 price tag. Now, of course, Nintendo's not solely to blame here. A lot of it will obviously fall on the uncertainty with tariffs and all of that. That's absolutely a factor here, no doubt. And obviously it's something a lot of people are unhappy about. Except for the mindless drones who do free PR for multi-billion-dollar gaming corporations fighting their battles day and night on Twitter in the trenches to defend their honor, just so they can continue to be exploited for their piggy bank. So anyway, it's been a lot of talk on this subject throughout the day. Everyone is, weighing in, and it's been a big discussion, but there's been a surprising lack of coverage and a lack of discussion around my hot ass and this fucking fart I'm about to shit out. I don't know if the webcam mic could pick that up, but that was American made. That's tariff-free right there, I'll promise you that. The point is, though, $80 games sucks. And it's not like the price tag is indicative of a quality increase across the board, because in a lot of cases, the main formula these gaming companies look to exploit is live service. So you're paying $80 for oftentimes games that are incomplete and are only tended to after you've paid the $80, and then they'll go in and try and make it better down the line. So you're paying more money for a less complete project in a lot of cases. Of course, that's not an absolute statement. That's not a blanket across the board. But in general, we've seen this a lot in recent years where the idea is push it out now, let's make money now, we'll fix it later. And I really cannot understand how anyone could see the state that gaming is in right now and be like, yeah, it makes sense. I'll pay $80 for these games that keep coming out that are fucking broken on launch, missing half of the content that they've promised. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, that is pathetic. Like, no one should be happy about the direction of $80 games coming up right now. Anyway, though, I'd like to read you their pricing update that they just posted. As of May 1st, we have adjusted recommended retailer pricing for our consoles and controllers worldwide. We also expect to adjust the pricing of some of our new first-party games starting this holiday season to $79.99. Those titles purchased on the Xbox Store have the benefit of Xbox Play Anywhere, allowing players to buy once and play on console and PC at no additional cost. We understand that these changes are challenging and they were made with careful consideration given market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and ensuring value for Xbox players. The rising cost of development is something I've talked about a lot, how every game costs like $100 million now and like 6 years of development just baking it in the oven only to come out and be just underwhelming. That is 100% on them. It's not like the industry norm. There are so many indie games that have proven you don't need $100 million budgets to deliver extraordinary experiences. It's just these suits, these fucking corpo zombies at the top of the food chain that are so delusional. They're seeing Hollywood investing $320 million in the fucking stinkerooskies like Electric State and then being like, we need to do that for video games. So that's been the direction they've gone for the last almost 10 years now. But I have said very loudly for a long time, the actual future of AAA gaming is by doing smaller projects that require less time to develop and less money and smaller teams. That to me, I feel like that's a no-brainer. Like, there are so many examples in recent years you can pull from of small teams or even one-man teams delivering game of the year like quality experiences. You don't need to be dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the next Concorde. Like, it's just a stupid path, but they keep talking about it like it's an inevitability, how development cost has to continue rising, and every studio needs 500 developers all working on Assassin's Creed Shadows 2. Like, it's just super unnecessary. It is so much bloat for no reason. Instead, just put your money where your ass is and just invest in good projects that don't need to be like a super grand slam to make a single oodle of money back on the investment. Like, just think about how much a game has to sell in order to be profitable in the AAA space right now. Even if you do have a game that does really well, it's a good chance it doesn't make any money back because you've put so much money into it over the course of so many years that it'd need to sell like a fucking $1 billion worth of revenue in order to see it go green even slightly. Whereas if you had a bunch of smaller projects that don't need to be these crazy miracle home runs to make money, you stand a chance. Like, I really think the Blumhouse model, this is the one I always mention, where Blumhouse finances like fucking 100 horror movies a year that all cost like $2 to $5 million, and you probably haven't even heard of half of these absolute turbo shitters, but they only need to make like $10 million, $15 million to be like a super success for the company. And they always do. It's very rare that a Blumhouse film doesn't make more than the budget, because it's so cheap to produce and it doesn't take that long. So it's a model that is proven efficient and works. And there are so many games that prove that model works too. But AAA is just so hell-bent on just dumping as much infinite money as they can into like one or two projects over the course of so many years. And they just end up being like super safe, Weenie Hut Jr., uninteresting. And even if they do moderately well, it's not good enough because it needs to do extraordinarily well to make any money back, because too much went into that fucking pit producing it. And it's only going to get worse now at $80 being the norm, because more and more people are getting priced out of buying AAA games. So what's going to happen naturally, more and more people are going to start pirating the games. But anyway, I'm rambling about things I've talked about a lot already. It's just, this is something a lot of people saw coming, with $80 being the new norm once that floodgate was opened. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so it sucks to see. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to rant about it a little bit here. That's about it, so yeah. If history's taught us one thing, it's that gamers are the pride and joy of the human race. I feel like the only reason the Lord ever even made humans to begin with was so that we would eventually evolve to a point where we can finally reach our ultimate metamorphosis and become the turbo gamers we were destined to be. And my friends, it's with a smile on my face and butterflies in my tummy that I proudly announce that we are entering the golden age of gaming. We have arrived. Gamers can't stop winning. We eat good, fuck good, feel good, and when someone stands in our way, we say, "Listen, Buster, you noob, get out of town or I'm gonna have to level up on your ass." And that's exactly what just happened in court, basically, with the FTC. The FTC got the latest smackdown from gamers when they tried to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Those fools at the FTC, those bumbling, imbecile, homunculus morons, thought that they could walk all over our God-given right to game. Hard. And now, they're learning a tough lesson. Don't tussle with the virtual muscle, or you're gonna end up looking silly. The cyberspace is a circus, and now you're the clowns. Now, for those of you who have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, I'll briefly explain. Microsoft made an offer to buy Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. An offer Activision Blizzard couldn't resist. Like Mr. Krabs with the dollar signs in their eyes, they were pretty on board with the idea, so they began moving forward with the conversations, because $69 billion, that's a lot of doubloons. That's enough clams to make you slap your own mother. So they were going forward, going through with the process, but encountered quite a few obstacles along the way, the biggest one being the Federal Trade Commission blocking the acquisition. They were arguing that if Microsoft was to acquire all of the properties under Activision Blizzard, they would then have the means and motivation to harm competition and be very anti-competitive, because they could basically like take something like Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox. This was a big talking point, actually, Call of Duty in particular, but Activision Blizzard has major heavy hitters in the video game space, and they were arguing that under Microsoft's control, they wouldn't really have incentive to release a quality product on rival consoles like Sony's PlayStation. So they were a bit concerned about, this being anti-competitive and maybe potentially even forming a monopoly down the line, so they motioned to block this acquisition. And this has been an ongoing battle for the last few months, and Microsoft's been making a lot of arguments about why it'd actually be the contrary. Should Microsoft get Activision Blizzard, they would actually enable more access to the properties, taking Call of Duty to a platform like even the Nintendo Switch. For all 6 people that would be delusional enough to buy a Call of Duty game on the Switch, because that'd be running at like 5 FPS. That fucking console can barely even handle mobile games. But there would be more access to it, according to Microsoft. And before the Switch gamers start fucking steaming out of their ears and slapping on the keyboard, I like the Switch. It's just a really embarrassing joke of hardware that can't really handle third-party modern games super well. Like Apex Legends on the Switch had to be the biggest joke the video game industry ever tried to pull. Nintendo Switch is good for just basically their first-party exclusives, so it is cool if Call of Duty does go to the Switch like this. That's great. More access is always a good thing, but that would be like the worst way of playing this game, I imagine, unless they release like the Switch 2.0. But regardless, Microsoft was arguing that if they do get Activision Blizzard, this would only actually help give people more means of playing these games on consoles. They wouldn't take anything away from rival consoles, and they've been making these arguments for quite a while now, and it seems to have worked because today, the judge ruled in favor of Microsoft. So they chose all of the correct dialogue options in order to get the Microsoft good, true ending, I suppose. According to the judge in this case, they stated that this court's responsibility in this case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending the resolution of the FTC administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood that it will prevail on its claims this particular vertical merger in the specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for a preliminary injunction is therefore denied. Fucking caps lock denied there. That's like some shit out of League of Legends. Judge was getting a bit toxic there, fucking locking that one down in caps. So the judge gave the thumbs down in the Coliseum here to the Federal Trade Commission's block on this Activision Blizzard play from Microsoft. They even just wiped their ass with an analysis from a Harvard economics professor who was arguing that they would have financial incentive to make Call of Duty an Xbox exclusive. And they said that this failed to take into account plans for the franchise to remain on PC, come to Switch, and be accessible through cloud gaming. Before the merger, a consumer wanting to play a Call of Duty console game had to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox. After the merger, consumers can utilize the cloud to play on the device of choice, including, it is intended, on the Nintendo Switch. Perhaps bad for Sony, but good for Call of Duty gamers and future gamers. I think they're actually right on the money with this one here. Before all of this hoopla here, if you wanted Call of Duty on the console, it was either Xbox or PlayStation. So I do understand the rationale behind if the Xbox manufacturer gets a hold of Call of Duty, if they grab the scrotum of Call of Duty, why would they even bother to continue putting it on Sony's PlayStation? That's their competition. I get where the thought process is coming from, but they fail to take into account that Microsoft itself already allows its exclusives to go to rival platforms, the PC. Microsoft itself, there's no such thing as a real Xbox exclusive anymore because all of their Xbox exclusives go to PC at the same time pretty much. So they kind of have already shown that they're okay letting their biggest titles go to other platforms. So I don't see why they'd think that it would be different here if they controlled the IP. They would still benefit from it going to PlayStation, and they'd benefit from allowing even more access, like going to the Switch. And they've already allowed all of their exclusives right now to not be locked down to the Xbox because they already go to PC too. So I do think under Microsoft there is going to be more access to things like Call of Duty. This was a huge talking point in this case because Call of Duty is such a fucking power franchise. And I do think that they're correct that under Microsoft, I don't see it being exclusive to Xbox or anything. It'll probably just be more accessible. Sony, on the other hand, has shown many times in its past that it wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to be like your only option. I've already gone over this in previous videos, but there have been times in the past where Sony has legitimately tried to do anti-competitive practices because they have a very strong market share in the video gaming space. and they don't budge on fucking anything mostly. And I think Sony recognized this, which is why they'd be looking out for their own selfish interests to continue to have that stranglehold on the market share. They realize that under Microsoft, Activision Blizzard properties being more accessible hurts their position, because now you no longer just have the choice of Xbox and PlayStation. Now Nintendo Switch could enter the conversation, cloud gaming where you could play on other devices as well. So Sony, I think, really only cares about itself, not like the good of the gaming space. So I overall do think it's a good thing here. I'm not exactly a Microsoft fan. I think pretty much every studio they touch turns to shit. And I really think the Xbox has nothing on it at all. It's just kind of a fucking brick. I have not got my Xbox out of this drawer in front of me in over a year and a half. And the only reason I brought it out a year and a half ago was to replay an old Xbox 360 game called Bayonetta. Love Bayonetta, by the way. So there's just, I think the Xbox Series X and all that is a fucking flop right now. Phil Spencer recognizes that. He even had that statement not long ago about how they've completely lost the video game industry race right now. But I'm still optimistic for the future. Like, with this deal going through, should it go through, again, it's not a done deal, I do think having more access to titles is a good thing. So I'm always for that. Though I'm not super optimistic about the quality of titles coming forward, because like I said, Microsoft has like the fucking cheese touch here. They curse everything under their umbrella in the video game space, and every studio kind of goes tits up. Now, like I said, it's not a done deal. There still is another big block right now, and this one comes from the Competition and Markets Authority. This is in the UK. So the CMA also blocked the deal in April, argued that it would hamper growth in cloud gaming. But it seems like this is starting to weaken a little bit, like they're starting to be more open to proposals from Microsoft. So it feels like that's only a matter of time before that's no longer an obstacle for this acquisition. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to give you this update because this is a very big deal in gaming. This is by far the biggest fucking deal like ever done in gaming. But probably just one of like the biggest purchases in general. A $69 billion buy here is fucking massive. And Activision Blizzard has some huge properties, so there is a lot of potential ramifications for the future of gaming. Could be good. I imagine it probably will be good, but it also could be bad. There's really no telling right now. So I just wanted to give you a little update on everything that's been going on here, and yeah, that's about it. So yeah. Do you know what separates us from animals? It's our ability to learn. And learn at a high level, complex, nuanced, big wrinkly brain things that only human beings are capable of. Yeah, a dog can learn to sit and roll over, and a wild animal will learn how to hunt more efficiently over time. Whoopee! But you know what humans can learn? We can learn to jiggle peek in Counter-Strike. We can learn to juggle. What else do you really need at the end of the day? You'll never see an animal do any of that shit, not even Air Bud. Point is, we can learn. And I think today it's important that all of you watching learn that criticizing video games is not a crime. I really think it's time we stop treating the purchasing of AAA games like it's some kind of heroic charitable act. For some reason now, there's been a trend where even if a game releases and it's absolute repulsive dog shit, people treat it like it's some kind of GoFundMe for a noble cause where it's like, yeah, but you bought the game and that's what matters, thanks for supporting. Or if you decide that, hey, I bought this game and I really don't like it, so you start to criticize it. For some reason, there's a not small group of people that will label you evil and say that what you're doing is just wrong and unethical because so many people worked on the game. How could you say these awful things about it? I just think it's so backwards and weird. A lot of people have been upset that a lot of customers are criticizing Redfall heavily. Redfall has been catching more shit than the porta potty at a construction site. It is a bad game. And of course, I am guilty of shitting on it pretty ruthlessly, and it's because I expect more out of the studio behind it, which is Arcane, a fantastic studio. But what they've released here is nothing shy of a dirty hemorrhoid that is an absolute blemish on the butthole of the entire gaming industry. So I made a whole video just kind of going over all of its weakest parts and being pretty harsh on it. And that's because it's a $70 game. And it doesn't even deliver on the most bare-bones quality standards you would expect in AAA gaming. It is 30 FPS locked on console, for example, which is a laughable joke, and it doesn't even meet the threshold for what you would expect from a modern title. It is lacking in every possible department. It feels like I just was the victim of an NFT rug pull for paying $70 for this game. It's not good. And pretty much everyone everywhere is saying the same things that I am. But there is a not super small group of people that are treating this game like it's an ASPCA commercial, and they're having like some kind of bleeding heart response to it where they feel protective, like their motherly instincts have kicked in and they need this game to suckle on their bosom to keep it safe. So they're getting mad at people that are saying the game is bad. Like, how could you? So many developers worked years on this project just for you to shit on it? Ridiculous. Have you no heart at all? And I just think that is so misguided and ridiculous. People have paid $70 for this. That is not a cheap game by any means. That is the highest level price that you can charge for a standard game. So you would expect the highest level quality product from it, which you do not get here. So it is entirely within people's rights to call it out for how lacking it is. It doesn't mean they hate everyone that worked on the game. I certainly don't. I just wish that the game wasn't so disappointingly bad. But there's nothing wrong with pointing out it is weak. It is a bad game. I hope that Arcane's next venture is a successful one. A lot of people are pretending that there's a lot of angry customers that are wiggling their fingers celebrating that the game is shitty, which I haven't seen. I don't know why anyone would celebrate a game being shitty after they've wasted $70 on it. I'm certainly not happy that I spent $70 on a stinker. I would have much preferred that it was a fun game that I really got into, but I didn't. Somewhere in the deep multiverse right now, there is a Charles White that is playing the fuck out of Redfall, and it's a Game of the Year contender because it was an amazing product. But that's not the reality we live in. We got a little Weenie Hut Jr. Happy Meal shovelware game with Redfall, and they charge 70 doubloons for it, which sucks. There's nothing wrong with people saying that it's bad. So stop labeling people with these harsh, mean labels because they insulted the game. I don't see a lot of celebration that the game is bad. That wouldn't make any sense. No one likes wasting money. So I just wanted to get that out of the way immediately because it ties into the bigger topic of the video, which is Phil Spencer himself, the head of Xbox, recently did an interview where he talked about his personal disappointment in Redfall and all of its shortcomings. It's a brutally honest and very interesting look into Xbox itself. So I want to dive into all of it because he gets into more than just Redfall. He gets into Xbox in general and how it's like really not even a competitor in the console wars, which was shocking to see him say that out loud because there's still so much copium from people that swear by Xbox, you know, consumer warriors that will fight tooth and nail for their favorite billion-dollar company. They still believe Xbox is a very worthwhile console, even though there's no real exclusives, no real reason to own it. I'm not here to really get into the weeds of it, but it's something Phil Spencer also recognizes. You know what, I will get into it real quick. Xbox has a laughable catalog of games. They have absorbed so many heavy hitters like Bethesda, but have nothing to show for it on Xbox that makes picking up the console worth it. There is no reason to own an Xbox, unless it's just what your friends are on already and you want to play with them. That's the only real reason. There's no other incentive to buy an Xbox, because the games go to PC anyway. Game Pass is an amazing deal, but no one's getting Game Pass for the first-party exclusives on Xbox or anything, because there are none. There's Halo Infinite, which was treading water for a long time and only just now starting to find its footing with some actual content, and that's about it. There's really nothing else on Xbox that would make it worthwhile other than just playing with your friends. It's a joke in the grand scheme of the console wars with Sony and the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch. But even the PlayStation 5 is lacking in exclusives. It's just... It was refreshing to see that even Phil Spencer sees this. Now anyway, let's jump in. So first and foremost, this article kind of sets the stage for Microsoft's blunders and their, you know, rocky, rough patch that they're going through. They recently had their acquisition of Activision Blizzard blocked, which was a $68 billion acquisition, by the way. And there's also been a 30% drop in the Xbox hardware revenue, which honestly is a lot better than I thought. I figured that'd be like a fucking 50 to 60% drop because no one that I've heard of recently is buying Xboxes because, again, there's not a real reason to. When asked about Redfall, he really does kind of just own up to all of it. And when I initially read it, my impression was that he kind of pushed it off onto Arcane Studios and less on like Microsoft itself. But when I really went back and watched the interview, the impression I get is that it was pretty somber. He truly does feel like there's a big weight on the shoulder of Microsoft to deliver quality, and they're missing the mark. So it doesn't, I no longer feel like he's trying to pass the blame off anywhere. It seems like he's just trying to take it all head on. So he said, there's nothing more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community and just kind of watch the community lose confidence and be disappointed. Disappointed, I'm upset with myself. I kind of revisit our process. I think back to the announcement of 60 frames per second, then we weren't shipping 60 frames per second. That was our punch in the chin, rightfully, a couple weeks ago. This is him talking about how Redfall isn't even 60 frames on Xbox. Again, a fucking joke. But they are committed to getting it there eventually, though I think it's inexcusable to release the game knowing that it's not 60 frames or even at the most baseline quality you'd expect for $70. He then goes on to sing the praises of the studio behind Redfall, Arcane, which is a studio I also like, and their pedigree really does speak for itself. They've made banger after banger, and now they haven't. I also wasn't a huge fan of Deathloop either, but at least the game had ambition and it did have interesting ideas. I just don't think it was executed super well. But now, I think Redfall, there is no way of explaining anything about it that could have even been remotely construed as good or well put together. He also said something that I found particularly interesting. He said, "We do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is double digits lower than where we thought we would be with this game through those." That's one of the disappointing things. We would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s. It's not part of our goals. This game does not deserve to be in the low 60s. It shouldn't even be cracking the mid 40s. It is not a good game by any metric at all. The only reason why it even might be even flirting with the low 60s is because people feel so bad for it and are remembering the good old days of Arcane and don't want to accept that this is a bad game and there's nothing wrong with calling it out for being such. In fact, I would argue that it's actually healthier for the developers so they can see where to improve and what not to do again. But yeah, anyway, what I found interesting though is the mock reviews. What fucking benefit is there to doing mock reviews if the reviews come from internal teams? Obviously, they're not going to go hog wild and say everything, super bold. They're not going to be mean or aggressive with it, whereas in the gaming space, people aren't pulling punches. People are going to be brutally honest. So I really feel like mock reviews are kind of worthless. There's got to be a better system in place, and I think Phil does take notice of that. I think this has been a wake-up call for that whole process. But I just don't understand why they would have ever been under the impression that doing mock reviews with internal teams is somehow going to be helpful and a good metric of where reviews might end up in the real world. Because again, no one's going to be being that honest with their boss and their peers. No, it's just not going to happen. Everyone's going to try and sugarcoat things and be as gentle as possible, caress their cheeks a little bit, butter them up. They're not going to really give you the nitty-gritty, tough-to-swallow pills about the product. This next part is where things get very wild. So he said that we're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. He then goes on to elaborate saying, "I see the commentary that if you just build great games, everything will turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. We want our Xbox community to feel awesome, but this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. There's no world where Starfield is an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen." I overall disagree with his core statement here about even if they were making great games, the Xbox is still kind of left in the dust, saying that no one's going to sell their PS5 or Switch for an Xbox, which I think is a weird way of looking at it because you really shouldn't be trying to think of like stealing Sony fanboys or stealing Nintendo fanboys for Xbox. You can be a fan of Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox. Like, you could just be someone who enjoys good games, and each console offers good games. That would be the ideal circumstance. So if you did have great games, system sellers, I really do think people would go to it. So I disagree that great games wouldn't matter. At least that's the way I interpreted his statement. But he does talk about some important things as well. And it's also shocking to see that the head of Xbox, the fucking guy at Xbox, is just openly admitting defeat to Sony and Nintendo in the console wars, saying that they're not under any delusion about out-consoling Sony or Nintendo here. So just kind of surrendering there, which was odd to read. But Phil Spencer calls a very important attention to the last generation of consoles where Xbox was not even a player, not even in the conversation. People probably didn't even realize Xbox One existed because it was such a fucking piece of shit. Xbox One aimed to be more than a gaming console. It aimed to be an entire entertainment hub. But it failed on that front and also failed at being a gaming console. They completely just wiped their ass with the idea of having good games anymore and wanted to get a little bigger. Their gluttony, their eyes were bigger than their stomach. They tried to bite off a market share of something that they really shouldn't have tried touching, which was just general entertainment. They needed to focus on gaming, which is what made the Xbox 360 so special, because the 360 had an unbelievably stacked catalog of games. 360 fucking went wild with how many games and how many great games it offered, and then you went to the next generation, and the Xbox One had fucking nothing. Actually nothing. And the PlayStation 4 went really hard on getting these very strong titles for their platform. And of course, Nintendo always has incredible exclusives, so they also went hard, and Xbox floundered. And they completely lost that generation, and Phil Spencer recognizes the severity of that because it got people off of Xbox and made them Sony customers or Nintendo customers, and people just kind of forgot about Xbox even making games, and it was really hard to try and claw that back. So now, with the Series X and everything, they tried to make these big strides of acquiring so much talent in the gaming space, acquiring very well-respected studios, getting fucking Bethesda, of all things, under their umbrella to try and really pump up their catalog of games because they recognize what a disaster it was to abandon that. But they're playing catch-up and they're not really making ground right now. The best thing Xbox has done is Game Pass. But it's also not exclusive to Xbox because you can access it on PC as well, which is usually just a better experience, like in the case of Redfall. You get 60 FPS on PC, you don't get 60 FPS on Xbox. So why the fuck would you even use Game Pass on Xbox for something like that? You wouldn't. You'd use it on PC. So they're just having a really hard time of getting strong titles and making it a good catalog that makes people want to get the Xbox Series X. But Phil Spencer says that even if they did have an incredible catalog of games, no one's switching at this point, which I just wholeheartedly disagree with. I feel like if Xbox did have an incredibly stacked catalog like the 360 did, people would be more than open to checking out the Series X. They would be more than open to considering getting the Xbox and playing those games. That's just the way it works. No one is playing the Nintendo Switch for third-party games. No one's getting the Switch so that way they can play fucking Elden Ring or anything. It's not happening. The Switch can barely run mobile games. The reason people have the Switch is because their catalog of exclusives, their first-party games, are so good, so people get the Switch for that and nothing else. So if the Xbox had incredible games, just like the Switch does, that are exclusive to the Xbox, I don't see why people wouldn't get it for it. Again, I think the Switch is the perfect case study here. That is an outdated, archaic piece of hardware. It fucking sucks when it comes to its technical aspect. But no one cares because the games on it slap. The first-party games, rather, and nothing else, not third-party games. I would be shocked if anyone ever played a third-party game on the Switch on their own volition. They're only getting it for the first-party games. So if the Xbox, which does have great specs, if they had good games on there, I really don't see why people would just be like, ooh, yucky, I'm not getting an Xbox, even for those incredible games. I feel like they'd be more than willing to. So yeah, unfortunately that's not where we're at right now. Xbox is just printing things that no one wants. Fucking Binky Moose Knuckles, Grand Adventure, Redfall. Like, no one's going to be getting an Xbox for any of that at all. It just becomes completely worthless. But if they turn it around and start making great games, I don't see why they couldn't at least make themselves less of a joke in the console wars or the general gaming space. So yeah, I just want to talk about this because I actually really appreciated Phil Spencer's honesty here with everything and how willing he was to be open with all of it, because I imagine as the head of Xbox, that's a really hard thing to just take on the chin. Just come as the fucking face of this company, which gets spit on a lot because it's not doing super hot against the other consoles or anything, and the games haven't been great. And just come forward and just be really open and honest with it. That takes a lot of guts. So I applaud him for that. I appreciate the insight, and I really am hoping for a turnaround for Xbox. I would love to dust mine off and have a reason to play it, but right now, I don't. But hopefully in the future there will be. So I just kind of wanted to go over all of this. That's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moistmeter. Today we're looking at the Xbox Series X, and we're joined by a man that's typically behind the scenes, our chief scientist, Jackson Clark. Take the stage.
Hey, it's nice to be let out of the cage every now and then, especially when new hardware is on the table. That's right, we're looking at the Xbox Series X, Microsoft's next-gen, I don't know what you would call it, a console, I suppose, is the right word to use for it.
I think that's what it's labeled, yeah.
So what you're looking at right now is basically footage I shot, since I'm the one unboxing the console. What you get from this is a pretty standard, I would say, big black kind of box. It's very boxy in appearance, Charlie. I don't know if that's an issue with you or not. I don't personally have an issue with it.
Yeah, I think the design's actually pretty nice. It's like some postmodern deco, maybe a bit gothic in their inspiration, I would argue. And the thing is, Jackson got his at an early time, so he got to spend a lot more time with it than I have. I went on a hiking trip to reconnect with nature, to realign my chakras before coming back to spend time with the Xbox. So Jackson's definitely going to be the one really spearheading this operation. I'm going to play the role as a technologically inept caveman here. So Jackson, what is the SSD I was reading about?
Oh yes, I see you've heard about the lightning fast SSD planted in this bad boy. That basically just means that all games are going to load so much faster than like previous generations. And to Microsoft's credit, they do. It does what it says on the tin. Games load extremely fast in this. Like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I was loading within like 10 seconds on the Xbox Series X. Like, you know how they've got fast travel in these games, like fast traveling to a new location. Lightning fast. No time to check the phone or anything like that. Go for a little potty break. You're straight back in the game. Xbox One, it takes upwards of like 2 minutes to load. So this is pretty revolutionary for consoles. So that's a point towards, you know, the Xbox Series X. Full disclosure, the PS5 also has an SSD though, so it's you'll find it on any next generation console.
I think I should also make it clear beforehand, this isn't sponsored by Microsoft or anything. Jackson was able to get his grubby little Australian hands on a nice Xbox, but it's not a sponsored review, so you're going to get the honest truth here. We don't fuck around. So
we've been pretty critical of Xbox in the past. I think that goes without saying. And a lot of those issues are still there. Like, this console genuinely has no exclusive games. And that is a major issue for both me and Charlie, and I think for a lot of people that will be an issue. It was meant to release with Halo Infinite, and that sadly, rest in peace, got delayed due to Microsoft getting a bit blueballed by all the memes. So
I like how it's still on the box though. Like when you get it,
Yeah.
I do have an Xbox. It came pretty late. It has Master Chief on the back of the box, and it's just like this little cock tease because you know that game sucks ass right now in its current state, and it's delayed for like the next 10 years.
It is pretty sad. You could definitely tell that was the main marketing goal. They really wanted to have Halo Infinite on launch, and I guess they thought they were on track for that, but the internet's reception just kind of kicked it back, and now it's it's infinitely delayed almost. It doesn't have a release date anymore. I'm not sure if it's going to come next year or not, but yeah. So no exclusives on launch. In many ways, Assassin's Creed Valhalla kind of fills that void. It runs super smooth at 4K 60. It feels like nothing I've really experienced on the Xbox One before, Charlie.
Yeah, the Xbox One though really sucked asshole. The Xbox One basically just became like a Netflix hub. It really didn't have many games, and I don't think it wanted to be. I remember Xbox One's main draw was, it's going to be all your entertainment in one. It's going to massage your back. It's going to let you watch movies and games. You're going to get to tap in and actually touch the actors and the shows you watch with the Xbox One. Whereas this at least makes it feel like Microsoft wants to make the Series X a gaming console first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they bought like 1,000 little studios now, and it does seem like the focus is on gaming, which is nice.
Which brings me on to my next point. Even though you don't have full new next-gen exclusives for the console, you do have a massive library of backwards compatible games. Like, I was testing it last night, all the way up to the original Xbox, Charlie, if you could believe that.
Wow.
That's 20 years of gaming at your fingertips. And a lot of those games are upscaled, new resolutions, high frame rates, new features, etc. Auto HDR, so you're getting the very best colors out of the box. I mean, it's pretty fucking impressive that, because they have like a dedicated team in Xbox, so I've heard, who goes back and just upgrades old games for no fucking reason, like games you've never heard of. It's like their fetish. They're just addicted to upgrading games, and I'm all for it. Like that means like you buy the Series X out of the box, and you've got like a library of games that you've never heard of just at your fingertips. I really appreciate that.
Can you hear the rain? And there's a little background. A hurricane is a hurricane has recently touched down in Florida as we're recording this, and I'm getting fucking walloped by it right now.
What's the weather on the scene, Charlie? This is turned into a weather report.
It's torrential downpour. It felt like my glass was rattling in front of me just now. Like, as you were ramping up about the old backwards compatibility, like, the weather gods were correlating with it and just, like, shaking violently.
That's how powerful the new Xbox console is, man. Phil Spencer is able to localize weather events directly to your house to really give you that next-gen feeling.
Oh, yeah, I can feel it. It's still in the box, and I can feel its power right now.
Well, I don't want to anger the weather gods any further, but I do want to bring up something that I had a personal distaste for, Charlie, and that is the Xbox UI.
Oh yeah, it's god-awful. Xbox One's UI was some of the most convoluted, counterintuitive dog shit I think I've ever seen.
Oh, well, in that case, I have good news, Charlie. Since you're so used to the Xbox One UI, it has pretty much gone completely unchanged. You will not notice any new features in the Xbox UI. It is one-to-one. And I think that does them a pretty big disservice, because new game console UIs are kind of like one of the main new features that like make it feel like a next-generational leap. So in some way, going from the Xbox One to the Xbox Series X, when you first boot up, it kind of feels the same. More snappier, obviously, because of the new hardware inside, but still you get that same visual presentation that feels pretty much exactly the same, so you kind of lose that wow factor. I just thought that was something to note anyway.
The UI is terrible. Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. That UI takes like an actual full-time scholar to like decipher how to get from point A to point B. Granted, I only played the Xbox One for the first like first year that it came out, when there was actually a few games on it, but that shit was terrible. Terrible.
Oh, okay. In that case, they did do like a mid-generational upgrade to the UI last generation during the Xbox One, so you probably will get that new wow factor of a different UI. But yeah, going from last generation towards the end to this generation, there really is no difference. And if you have issues with that, then you're gonna find the same issues here in the Series X. Sadly, the only new feature I could find was that you're able to kind of sort your game library to show the exclusives, if you will, like the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S optimized games. So that's cool, I guess, but that's genuinely the only new thing that I could find in terms of UI.
That's a real shame. I absolutely think that was a big misstep right there, not making a new UI or just redesigning the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's one of the main keys of like really wowing people out of the box, is like, wow, this is all new and unique, and it just doesn't have that wow factor. It's not until you actually get in the games and see the new performance upgrades, like going from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second on a console is, you won't ever want to go back. It's life changing.
I can tell. You sound like a much happier man right now. I can literally hear a smile on your face. You can't play basketball without the ball. So tell me about the Xbox Series X controller. What is it like to hold that beautiful artifact?
Well, much like the UI, Charlie, you're going to be quite disappointed. Well, I don't think disappointed here. It's exactly the same as the Xbox One controller.
It's a good controller.
It is a great controller, don't get me wrong, and I don't think that they necessarily needed to fix anything from it. Like, you don't fix what's not broken, per se. So there's nothing new here. It's got a textured grip on the back, which kind of feels better in the hands. The D-pad is slightly different, but like in terms of function, essentially the same. It's got a new share button underneath the start and pause buttons, so you can quickly upload pictures and such to your social media. But apart from that, it is exactly the same, feels exactly the same in the hand. The good thing about that is that you'll be able to use your previous accessories from the Xbox One and bring them over to the Xbox Series X. Like if you've got the Elite 2 controller, you'll be able to use that on the Series X. But yeah, it's definitely missing that next generational feeling from a new controller. But, it's not broken. It feels good still. So I'm not going to count that against the console.
Xbox always had the best controllers, though. They really kind of hit it the right way in the beginning, and
Yep.
I don't think they ever really needed to innovate. They've always just had the gold standard for controllers.
I definitely agree, but that might change this generation with what I'm hearing about the PlayStation 5 controller. I guess you'll have to wait for the review to find out what we think about that controller.
Did you see all of those Twitter videos with the Xbox overheating and smoke flying out of it?
Yeah, I did.
They're fake, right?
Yeah, those are definitely fake. I'm pretty sure those... Well, I don't want to open myself up to lawsuits in case one does actually light on fire in the future. But those videos that you're referring to on Twitter, I'm pretty sure are fake. They were just like people blowing vape smoke into the consoles for those gorgeous Twitter views.
I see.
Yeah.
A big
They're
scandal then. Now, have you stress tested it pretty extensively? Have you taken it like, a baseball bat to it, dropped it in the toilet or anything, make sure it's still running?
I have done pretty much every conceivable thing to the Xbox Series X in terms of not demolishing it. Like I haven't done what you've said. I haven't like taken a golf club to it and given it a few new dents, but I have pretty much left like the highest strenuous games on for hours just to kind of test if it overheats or anything like that. It really doesn't. I've touched it. I've touched the Xbox. I've been like a gynecologist reaching underneath it, trying to fiddle with the stuff underneath, trying to feel if it maintains that cool feeling. It does. There's the fan noise. I cannot hear even in game, like at highest load. Can't hear the fan. It's silent. It's kind of remarkable in that way. It's cool to the touch. There's really no overheating or fan noise from what I've been able to ascertain.
Okay, well that's great to hear. So the biggest downside I know, or that I'm hearing, is that there's just literally no games on it right now. There's nothing exclusive. The only games there are games from the last generation. So would you say, like, if you got this as a Christmas present as a young 15-year-old spry nubile youth, would you be like super happy and excited? Like, what would you boot up and start playing right away?
Well, just because there's no exclusives doesn't mean there aren't games to play. As I've said, there's also a lot of titles coming out this month, like cross-platform titles. So if this young kid doesn't have another console, then of course he's going to get some playtime out of this console because he's going to have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He's going to have Watch Dogs Legion if he's unfortunate enough to play that. He's also going to have the new Call of Duty game, Cyberpunk later. He's going to be a very lucky boy is what I'm saying. There's a lot of nice titles coming out that you'll still be able to play on Xbox Series X, and you'll be able to see the market improvements over the last generation with those new frame rates and resolutions. So I don't think lack of exclusives is seriously going to hurt the console in terms of casual audience to begin with. And like you said, Microsoft has gone on a spending spree and bought up a whole bunch of studios. So we should start seeing those exclusives coming fairly soon, I would hope.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Well, at least I would hope so.
There is one factor of the game that kind of blew me away, to the console, that kind of blew me away, and that is the quick resume feature. I showed you that last night, Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty remarkable what they were able to accomplish with that. You're basically able to switch between games almost instantaneously. But not only that, you're able to pick up exactly where you left off without even saving. And you're able to do this from a cold boot, by the way. If you unplug the Xbox and leave it overnight and then plug it in the next morning and relaunch Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for example, it will load in under 10 seconds exactly to the point where you left off. And then you're able to switch to another game that you were playing, like Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I'll show footage of that at the moment, the quick resume. And you're back where you left off in that game. And then you can swap back between Assassin's Creed Valhalla back where you left off. It's pretty, and you're able to do that with up to 5 games. That's definitely the most next-gen feature of the console, I think, and it's a pretty impressive feature.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it would once there's games on there to switch between.
And we should also mention that the Xbox does come with HDMI 2.1 compliant cables, which means you are able to go up to 120 frames per second, and that feature is there in games like Dirt 5 and even Gears of War 5 has it in its Versus mode. Sadly, I wasn't able to test it though because I don't have a HDMI 2.1 compliant TV since they're pretty niche at the moment. Once those TVs come out, then you'll be able to do that and increase that frame rate even further from 60.
So all of this in consideration, Jackson, using your advanced algorithms, what would you plug this into the Moistmeter? What would you clock it at?
I think it's a pretty massive improvement over the Xbox One, definitely.
Yeah, it couldn't
I
be
would
worse.
give it What would you give it, Charlie? I'm curious.
With everything you've said, I'd probably be looking somewhere in the realm of like an 80, 85, something in that ballpark. Really, the only main things that I can even pick up on as being bad is just the lack of exclusives, like reasons to own an Xbox over PlayStation 5, given the exclusivity of the games, and also just shitty UI. Those are like the two main things.
Okay. Well, I think we're on the same page then, because I was ready to give this an 80. That's what I'm giving it, an 80 out of 100 on the Moistmeter. So Xbox Series X, a pretty great new device, new console. I don't think you will necessarily go wrong with it if you get it, if you're able to get it, because it's pretty much sold out everywhere. Yeah, 80.
Well, that sounds pretty good, man. I appreciate you coming in, the specialist here. You'll be hearing Jackson again with the PlayStation 5, because I also got caught with my dick in my hand on that console as well.
Yeah, you took a fucking trek at the wrong time, man.
Yeah. Well, just one of those things. So, look forward to more of Jackson's in-depth analysis of the PlayStation 5. And yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. The gaming space is in a pretty weird spot right now with so many bad decisions happening so quickly, it's just leading to this avalanche of garbage. Like, I don't think Mr. Magoo could make as many horrible decisions as these video game executives have been recently. We just saw it with Escape from Tarkov doing their best Voltorb impression and using self-destruct on their entire company and game, by being overcome with greed and leading to the absolute destruction of their product that they had built up over the course of years and ruined the trust of the community. And then immediately after that, Sony decided to do something even stupider by activating the Orb of Confusion and trying to find a way to ruin one of the most successful games in recent memory with Helldivers 2. They went full-blown like Brain Offenheimer, now I am become Death, destroyer of games, and made a greedy decision that nearly ruined Helldivers, and then they had to break out the ukulele for their public apology press tour here. It's like they got offended that someone did a worse job than them, so they found a way of one-upping it. And then from out of nowhere, sneaking in from the shadows, we have the dumb assholes at Xbox going, wait a minute guys, check this one out. And then made a clown of themselves, like fucking fools, publicly eating shit, making terrible decisions. It's like a Royal Rumble, where more and more AAA industry companies keep coming forward and make decisions that beg the community to throw pies and tomatoes at their faces. Yesterday they announced there'd be some closures coming to some studios under the Microsoft umbrella. Arcane Austin, Alpha Dog Studios, Tango Gameworks, and Roundhouse Games were banished to the Shadow Realm. And that means that Xbox has now closed more studios than it's released games this year. That is an embarrassing statistic. They are more likely to close a studio than they are to release a game at the moment. That's fucking shocking. Now, I really want to get into the weeds of this and roll around in the mud, but before I do that, I do want to thank today's sponsor, Current. Big thanks to Current for sponsoring this video. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with Current. We worked with them a lot in the past, and they have a lot of great products. The new one is an absolute game changer. It's called Paycheck Advance. When you start banking with Current, you can access up to $500 before payday once you qualify. Paycheck Advance is free, or you can instantly withdraw cash for a small fee. You can withdraw as many times as you need without additional fees, and there's no lines of credit and no credit checks. So stop waiting for payday. You can go ahead and get Current and get Paycheck Advance right now. So go to current.com/Penguinz0, or you can download the app and set up a direct deposit and use my code Penguinz0 and get $50. Terms apply. You can also click the link in the description below to get started so you can try Current and build your money future. Current.com/Penguinz0. Thanks again, Current, for sponsoring. By far, the biggest criticism that Xbox has faced over the last decade is their lack of games. In the Xbox 360 era, they were kings, pumping out some bangers, absolute timeless masterpieces. And these puppies were popping fresh out of the oven days or months after each other, which is unheard of in the current landscape of things. Crobcat has a great video on the golden era of the 360, and the iconic games that were coming out quickly. It was like they're playing on a fucking Minecraft private server where you couldn't stop hitting diamonds. Like every block was diamonds back then. And now look at it. It's such a fall off. The Xbox exclusive release schedule looks more empty than that room Squidward went to be all alone. It's sad to see it in that state. They just don't make many games anymore. They are by far the worst out of all the major players. And it's not even really close. They do still have some exclusives that come out, but it's very seldom. So, anyway, the fact that they're closing studios is a big alarming red flag for a lot of gamers because they're just struggling, clearly struggling. Not just them, the whole industry is, but Xbox in particular just cannot get it together. When they do, by some miraculous divine intervention, release a game, an exclusive, they haven't been that good. Like Redfall. Redfall became the joke of gaming last year. And speaking of Redfall, that gets to one of the studio closures, which is Arcane Austin, the studio responsible for that blemish, that absolute festering wound on the AAA gaming space. They shut down that studio because that game flopped so hard for them. They didn't even give them a second chance. And keep in mind, Arcane Austin didn't want to make the Redfall that we received. That was put upon them from everything I've seen. All of the evidence points to them working on that game because they were forced to. And that brings us to what has by far been the scariest studio closure, which was the shutdown of Tango Gameworks, which is the studio behind Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is by far Xbox's most positively reviewed game in years. It was a darling. It was a game that everyone appreciated, everyone had nothing but praise for, and absolutely one of those games where people were like, Xbox might be back. Finally, a good game. Finally, an exclusive that's not dog shit. And then they shut down the studio that made it. It was reviewed tremendously. Everyone loved it. And they still shut the studio down. They took it behind the barn and put a bullet in its head. There's a quote in that article that says we couldn't be happier with it. Like, they were pleased with its performance. But I guess it just wasn't enough. And a lot of people are blaming Game Pass. Game Pass is a really good deal for gamers. I've said that since the very beginning, since the genesis of Game Pass. That shit slaps. It is crazy value. That'd make your fucking head spin. And I always said, I don't know how it's profitable for them. And I don't think it is. I actually am starting to get behind those tinfoil condom conspiracy theories that Game Pass is actually ruining some of the game studios because their games are getting put on Game Pass, thus people aren't paying full price for them or anything, and it's making their sales numbers look weaker because why would you pay full price for Hi-Fi Rush if you could just sign up for Game Pass and have access to it for free, basically, right? Like, it's one of those things that doesn't reflect great on the sales numbers of the games that are on there. And I really think that this is great proof of that. A lot of people played Hi-Fi Rush. This was a game that was being streamed out the wazoo from what I recall. Everyone was talking about it for a while. It was the hot button topic of conversations that Xbox has finally delivered something great for the first time in a long time. And now fast forward to today where they're shutting the studio down. So the performance, like, financially must not have been that great, which is surprising. So it's either because of Game Pass or because of how inflated the costs are for producing games in the modern age. This shit is gluttonous when it comes to eating money. This is something I've talked about over the last couple of years, but games are so expensive to make now, it takes years in certain cases to deliver a game. That is a long time to be paying for a game to be produced, and that's not even counting in the marketing budget and the amount of spending that goes into that. So it's not enough for a game to just be really good and sell pretty well. It needs to sell extraordinarily well or have some built-in lifeline monetization where you can continue to make money off it long term, so it's not relying on just the initial sale of the game. You bake in these monetization schemes that can continue to tap into people's piggy banks and milk their titties dry for their allowance as you give them these cosmetics and loot boxes or whatever you're putting in there. So that way you can try and make that money down the line and turn a profit. Because it is so hard to break even on games right now, you'd need to move millions in a lot of cases. To have a profitable game in the AAA space, you have to outsell the Bible, basically. It's not easy. And it's leading to so many problems in the industry, which is why they seem so desperate to find new greedy ways of monetizing it. It is in a terrible place, which is why indie games are flourishing. Indie games are picking up the slack and they're crushing it. Indie games right now are the best games on the market. Now, this Bloomberg article has more information here. This is from Jason Schreier and Dana Bass, who worked together to dig into the details of what's going on there. Executives felt stretched too thin trying to manage every team. The studios had just released games and needed to staff up to be able to start work on new ones, and more cuts will occur at an individual level with staff offered severance packages within Bethesda proper. As far as studio shutdowns go, Booty said that the company's studios had been spread too thin like peanut butter on bread, and that leaders across the division had felt understaffed. They decided to close these studios to free up resources elsewhere. Now, Booty is referring to Matt Booty, who's been in charge of Xbox Game Studio for a while, and his name is so fitting for this situation because this is just ass. This Booty can't stop shitting the bed at Xbox right now. And Mr. Booty goes on to add that Redfall's failures were not the reason as to why the studio was shut down, which is a whole load of horseradish. That is just a lie. He is just telling a fib right there. It was intimated with Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and Alpha Dog all just having put games out that it was tied to timing more than results. Tango had just put out the critically acclaimed Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo titles. Arcane Austin put out the aforementioned Redfall, and Alpha Dog had released Mighty Doom. Roundhouse had been working as a support studio and will be absorbed into ZeniMax Online to work on their projects instead of being closed. Which is still basically closing that studio in my opinion, but I guess not technically. But anyway, these closures come less than 6 months after Microsoft laid off 1,900 Activision, Blizzard, and Xbox employees, and just months after Sony closed some of its own game studios and laid off around 900 employees. So these layoffs are just happening at an alarming rate with all this turmoil in the gaming space. And then I saw this headline that popped up today from The Verge. Microsoft says it needs games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after killing its studio. So the goofball Matt Booty came forward wearing the dunce cap and said in a town hall discussion, "We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards." Brother, you are dancing on the grave of one of the studios that delivered just that. Hi-Fi Rush was a small game. It was critically acclaimed. Everyone loved it. It won awards. Like, it was exactly what you were describing. You just buried them 24 hours ago, and now in your post-mortem, post-nut clarity, you're scratching your chin. We need some smaller, less expensive titles that can be extremely good and really punch above their weight class, winning awards, being very prestigious. Let's try that approach. That's something we haven't tried before. I could be a pioneer, a trailblazer with this approach. Like, it's no fucking wonder Xbox is so disheveled and all over the place and can't get their act together. Matt Booty is suffering from amnesia. Like, how in the world could you make this statement after you just shut down the studio that did exactly what you described? AAA gaming is such a mess. It is a disaster, and I think it's only going to continue to get worse. There are rumors, of course, of more layoffs coming at Microsoft and more studio closures perhaps down the road. I wouldn't be surprised. I also do think we're going to see more on Sony's side with them having more layoffs and all that, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It's just too unsustainable at the moment with these big budget AAA studios right now and the publishers behind them making awful decisions for them down the road. So, yeah, just wanted to talk about this a little bit. That's it. See ya.